Hey, well, good evening and welcome to the Brothers-in-law and joining us, taking time out of your busy schedule tonight to check out the brothers and see what we have to say about police-involved shootings or police-involved incidents that take place throughout the country to get two former law enforcement perspectives on what has happened and took place. And we let you know whether or not, hey, that's what two reasonable officers would have done or shouldn't have done since is what the case is tonight. But before we get into this video, it's heartbreaking. It's just sad that something like this happened. But we're gonna talk about it, see what happened, what went wrong, and what things can be done to alleviate something like this from happening while you're in police custody. But this is what we do. Like, share, and subscribe this out and get us out there viral to start this conversation of how we improve policing. Mike and I are both former law enforcement police officer. I'm a former Virginia State trooper, and Mike is a retired 26-year police officer from Pleasanton, California. Mike and I both grew up together. We're both from Ohio, childhood friends. Took similar paths in our lives. I retired from the military, and Mike did 6 years in the Army. So we both have a passion for law enforcement, and we're just here, two brothers, giving our perspective on it and trying to make some sense of what's going on and why these incidents happen. So welcome, Mike, and we got a
Yeah,
good one. Welcome, Jesus Love You. I see Goat and Tone. Welcome.
do
Go
it.
ahead,
Welcome, Tone. I see you. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Mike.
Everybody on news before we get started. Everybody is obviously seeing that whole Brittany Griner thing where they sentenced her to 9 years in Russia. That
Yeah,
sucks. That sucks a lot too. That I mean, I think a lot of times Americans, when they go overseas to other countries, I think that they want the judicial system in those other countries to be similar to what it is here in America. You know what I'm saying? And that's just not the case. You got to be real careful messing around in them other countries. I mean, it's a weed violation, right? Or whatever it was, from what I understand. But it's like, should she do 9 years? I mean, wow, that's pretty steep for me, in my opinion. But that's Russian law, apparently. So we can't expect Russia to do what they would do here in America. It's just a different country. Folks got to be careful. You got to be careful, especially when you transporting drugs and stuff over the airport and stuff like that. What you say to that, real quick, Corey?
I heard about it. I didn't really get to read much into it, but I've been to Russia many years ago, and you know, I try not to get deep into that because that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. But you're not an American. You don't have your constitutional rights when you go over to another country. So what you can do here, just be keep in mind you can't do in another country. You don't have due process when you go to some of these other foreign countries, right?
That's it.
Once you leave outside of the continent U.S., uh, those rights don't apply.
That's
You
right.
don't
There you
get
go.
due process.
I said it. You said it.
Uh, so, but what we're talking about tonight is another Brianna Graham who tragically lost her life back on July 20th, 21st, somewhere around there. The incident actually happened July 14th or 15th, depending on what time you
Hey,
read
Megan, I see you.
what happened. But she died in police custody, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Was should this had happened? I mean, it did happen, but what do we do to prevent something like this from happening again? And then, Mike, should a cop go to jail because of this? Right? We're gonna talk about what it means to be in police custody. Right? What amount of responsibility does the officer have when you're in their custody? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Again, before we get started, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe this out for us, and welcome everybody. And like always, we'll show the video. And this one is not that long. I don't think, Mike, maybe 4 minutes, if that.
Yeah,
But
it's not that long.
now, if we see something in it, we'll stop it, we'll comment. But usually, we like playing the video through so you get a grip of it and see what happens, and then we'll discuss it. And then don't be shy, chime in. We like to hear from y'all. We like to be interactive with our audience, so please drop us a comment in the comment box down there.
Oh yeah. Hey, Mr. Taylor, I see you.
Hey, Mom, and we'll start this conversation. So let me go ahead and set this up here with my shared screen, and we'll get into this. Again, it is disturbing, I'll say. So just keep that in mind. All right.
So I don't see where just to set it up real quick. So apparently now it's our understanding. You correct me if I'm wrong on this, Corey.
Mm-hmm.
This woman, I believe it was her parents that called the police for either a welfare check or something along those lines because she had some medically diagnosed mental health issues. So apparently they find her. They have a confrontation with her. I assume they were going to take her to a mental health facility or something along those lines, or hospital. I'm not quite clear on that where they were going to take her.
Right.
But they end up basically taking custody of her, for lack of better words, and place her in the back of this patrol car. So we'll take it over. That's where this video, that's where how this all started. So let's look at this video and see what's going on.
All right.
I'm not drunk. I haven't had anything to drink. I haven't had anything to. No, you can give me bring your breathalyzer. Bring out your breathalyzer. Bring out your breathalyzer. Bring out your breathalyzer. Ah! Bring out your breathalyzer. Bring out your breathalyzer. Ah! Get out of me!
Now you can get charged.
Get out of me!
Girl, you don't walk. Grab her.
Get out of me! Get out of me! Get out of me! Get out of me! I ain't broke no law.
Right.
I ain't broke no law. Get out of me!
Hello.
Get out of me!
There you go. There's all up.
I hate these ads.
Do not buy solar
panels. Y'all.
If you live in one of these 11 states of America,
always like
it's the worst decision you could make for your home.
Mess the whole thing up.
I bet you I hang myself as soon as I get in there. I bet you I hang myself as soon as I get in there.
Bet you I hang myself.
It's more than one way to kill yourself. I know what you told me. It's more than one way to kill yourself.
More than one way to kill yourself. Okay.
Brown, get up here.
No. Y'all better knock me out. And I got a flint. I sting in my heart.
Come on, bro.
No, where my brother?
I know how to get over.
Take me. You can take me. You can take me. I don't care. I don't care.
Get up.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Ain't nobody gonna take you.
I don't care. 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 I don't care.
That door is closed.
Yeah, that door is closed. Is it locked? I don't know, but it is closed. They never show the other side though.
Right, that's key.
Yeah.
Now at this point, this guy just drops his Bluetooth, so they spend a few minutes looking for
it. Should be flesh.
Which is fine. At this point, the young lady is fine. She's secured in the back of the vehicle. So
For now.
For now, I had no problem with this part here. Hey, you lose stuff all the time. You know, you look for things that you lose.
All right. Anyway, he said, "What now?"
And this obviously takes their attention off of making sure all the
It fell
doors.
out when we were pulling
Right.
around. So,
It might have, Mike.
hey, breathe, man. They're back here somewhere. They're back here somewhere.
So it looks like they thought she was under the influence of alcohol in addition to whatever else was going on with her. So I'm assuming that they maybe that's what's not clear. Did they decide to take her for public intoxication, or did they decide to take her to because she was a danger to herself at 5150 or a mental health committal or something like that? So I'm not clear on that part. Nonetheless, they do take custody of her, you know?
Yeah, it's not clear where they were transporting it to, but I have a question for the audience once we get through this. Let's see what their thought is. I mean, you're trying to.
I ain't gonna worry about it. All right, because you went off. Thank you.
Put your load light aside.
Here you go.
So you one officer is black, one officer is white. Not that that matters, but for the sake of discussion, that's what I see.
Yeah, another ad. Sorry, y'all.
YouTube TV has no hidden fees.
Good thing is a couple
and
of seconds.
unlimited DVR space.
Yeah. That's YouTube for you.
Tell you something about.
Hey, constellation.
4 years gonna be en route to the SO, one female, 1095. We get the mileage gonna be 146,211.
And folks, that right there is standard procedure. Anytime you get somebody in your vehicle, at least for us too, Mike, we had to give out our beginning mileage.
We had to do that if it was a female that was in the back, we were male.
Yeah.
That stopped. Well, we'll get it in a second. Okay. Yeah, they never showed him closing the door, Stacy. That's the part we don't see. Is apparently the other door was open, or ajar, or something where the door was open. Let's just keep that. It wasn't secured.
See, this is where.
So she falls out, and she's on the the passenger side, because she's on that side of the road.
Mike, I'm gonna rewind that a quick second because you watch. So he's driving.
Yeah.
Right? No noise, no nothing. Just listen.
Now, I heard a click, but what was that click? Was it her opening the door, or was the door unsecured?
But look how far he drove before he realized she was out.
We don't need ambulance. Brown. Hey, I'm locked by myself. You won't call the ambulance.
She's still breathing. Go ahead.
Tell you something. Go.
She getting up. How your back door?
I couldn't catch what he said. Your back door?
He said you closed the back door.
Oh.
She all right. Sit up. Sit up. Sit up. Sit up. Go ahead, sit up.
I want to say they both black, Mike. I mean, I could be wrong.
Maybe I could be wrong, but at least one of them is.
That female said just jumped out the vehicle.
They take the cuffs off.
All right, now you're telling her to take the cuffs off, which is good.
Sit her up. Sit up. Sit up, Brianna. You all right? You got some water?
Oh, no. Yeah. Here you go. I can't see.
Go ahead.
I'm getting it at 1018. 37 heck off. Send grade to 1018.
Our viewers, I want to see some comments on here. I want to see some questions. See what you guys are thinking. What's on your mind?
So here's
You want to take off?
Yeah. And then she jump at the car. Don't supposed to be unlocking the back. We just do a report. She fine.
Oh.
She fine. You got your light.
So he thinks she jumped out the back.
Yeah.
That's very possible, Stacy. Very possible.
Say something, go. How good come in from Hickory Grove side, off Shore Road.
So I assume they're calling for an ambulance at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Some kind of medical assistance.
Yeah.
Got your back door, but that's we write a report and just say, you know, like you said, you got a back door. We're gonna trust, you know, but we good. We good. Just keep it check. Brianna.
That's a good question. Jesus loves you. Very good question. Was it already open?
Yes,
was it ajar, or was it open before and never quite secured all the way? Was it open before they got to this call? You know, that's what I'm not sure.
I got it.
All right, and that's it right there.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of questions, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's sad. Should something that like this have happened? No. When you are taken into officer's custody, they're responsible from the time they detain you to the time either they release you to go about your business, whether you're getting a warning or you're getting a summons, or some people call them citations. That officer is responsible for your well-being.
Yeah.
And all the way back to the precinct. So I think it was just carelessness on their part to make sure the vehicle was safe for transport. Being in situations like that, see, when we transported folks, Mike, they always rode in the front seat with us. So unless they were extremely combative, then we will call a city unit to come up and put them in the back of their vehicle because they had the cage in there. Or if we get somebody to call a paddy wagon. But I don't want to make light of it. It's still a bad situation. They're at fault. There's no way around that. Was it intentional? Did they do it because she was black?
Nah,
none of that.
None of that. Good questions I'm seeing come up here. Why would they want? Tone says, why would they want her to sit up? That's the worst thing you can do for a fall incident. Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Tone. If in my opinion, if I realized that I had a prisoner just fall out the back of my car and they land on the side of the road, I'm probably not going to move them unless I got to get them out of the road or something like that. That's different if it was a dangerous situation, but I probably wouldn't have moved them. But here's a couple of things too you want to consider. First of all, like Corey said, these officers are ultimately responsible for her falling out that car, jumping out that car, or falling out that car, which however she did it, unless she actually smashed the window and jumped out that car. Okay.
Correct.
That's different. Because then you could say you did everything you could to keep her secured in the car. Number two, I have a problem with them handcuffing her in the front. Because when we handcuff people in the back. We don't handcuff people in the front. If you got your hands in the front, there are a lot of things you can do, a lot of movement you can do, a lot of fighting you can do, a lot of pushing a door open you can do. Okay. Now, when they put her in the back of that car, before they put her in the back of that car, she made a couple of statements that were suicidal. There's more than one way to commit suicide, or I'm gonna hang myself. She was saying those things. So she was definitely suicidal when they put her in there. Not that excuses anything. Like I said in the start of this, Corey, The officers are ultimately responsible. When I take custody of you, I'm responsible for your safety. Now, Corey, we did transport everybody in the back seat. We didn't put anybody in the front seat, mainly because all our gear was in the front passenger. But we rode only one per car. All our gear was in the front seat. So we reserved, obviously, the back of the patrol car was for prisoners.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So go ahead.
Now, I was going to answer Jesus Loves You question. He says, surprise, there are not cameras inside the vehicle. In fact, there are. You have the vehicle mounted camera, which the officer can reverse the rear view to the inside the cab, because I used to turn mines on when I transported a female, and that would stay running until we got to lockup. Just because it wasn't required that we did that, but I always did that for the simple fact, you're not going to sit here and try to blame me for something that I didn't do, because people will sit and do that. So every time I had a female that I was transporting, I would always put that rear camera on inside the cab. To make sure, nothing happens. So she can't sit and say, hey, well, he touched me and blah, blah, blah. Now, but again, in this case here, I don't know. Now, Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong, because like I said, we didn't carry body cameras. So I don't know if you were able to still have both the vehicle mounted camera as well as your body cam. Is that how you got it?
Now, see, we didn't have vehicle cameras. We didn't have cameras in the vehicle. We only had body cameras. So if you were in the vehicle, the only way you would have been recorded could have been audio. Now, when I transported a female, I always kept my body camera on. I might not catch the back seat on video, but you can certainly hear. And the other thing is, you said a little bit earlier, Corey, that you would always give your starting mileage before transporting a female. We started off doing that too. But then we came out with the system where dispatchers can always see where every patrol vehicle is in the city on the computer screen. So they know where you are real time. They know where in the city, exactly where in the city I am. So if I say I'm en route to the jail from my location, they can actually see me on that map in dispatch, my car, and see when I left, how long it took me to get to where I got to go, the route that I took, and where I ended up. So one of the main reasons why we used to give before that system, one of the main reason we would give the mileage is so that a female couldn't come back and say, well, we drove some extra places and did some foolishness to you before we got to the jail. But when that system came out with the computers and everything, with GPS on the patrol vehicles, well, that proved where you were right there. So you no longer had to do that. But like I was saying, Corey, we didn't have cameras in the car. Now, could she have kicked that door open that wasn't secure in the first place? I don't know. I tend to think that door, it might have been closed partially, but not enough to where it wouldn't have been opened by her. Could she have kicked the door open if it wasn't secured properly? Sure.
Right. I don't think it latched. It might have
been there you go. That's what I mean.
It wasn't latched. It might have been shut just enough that you didn't get that dinging noise when you have a door open.
Yeah,
it might have been, and because Stacy had asked me, it's like, well, couldn't you feel the air from the door? Not necessarily.
I got a plexiglass window in a cage between me and the suspect in the back seat, so I may not hear the air unless the window is down or something,
Right. You may not hear the air. So she obviously had to recognize that door was open. Right. We already know that she wasn't really being compliant and wanting to go to lockup. So because she had realized the door was open, this could have been her opportunity to get out. But I mean, she was suicidal anyways. I mean, she already made the comment that, hey, I'll go there and I'll just, hang myself.
Hang myself.
There's
More than
more
one
than one
ways
way.
to commit
Now,
suicide.
here's the question I have,
And
and
she
I
may
like
have
to
been
hear.
drunk, Miss Taylor. She may have been drunk.
Yeah. We're not. It didn't say any article. She was just saying in the video that she wasn't drunk. I don't know. They never mentioned that she was. Now there is a longer video out there. I don't know if it starts from when they made the initial contact with her or not. But here's the question I had, Mike. If you know that your family member is suffering from a mental health crisis, oh, excuse me, my flag fell down on me. Is suffering from a mental health crisis, should you be calling the police, or should you actually call the ENTs to come out there, the paramedics to come out there? Now, I would say if they're being combative, obviously, yeah, you'll have to call the police first because fire and rescue is not going to respond to somebody if they're being combative. If they're not being combative, they're just not wanting to listen to you, then I would think the best thing for me to do, would be calling rescue first to get them, because they're going to be a little more uh, police officers. They're going to be a little more down. They're not going to be amped up going into the situation versus, as where a police officer may be going in, because we're going to be thinking a lot different than ENTs. So what are your thoughts on that? If you have a family member that's suffering from a mental health crisis, are you, if they're not being combative, would you still call the police, or would you call fire and rescue to come out?
Well, I think that might be different in certain cities and certain states, even. Like for instance, if it's an emergency, you're gonna dial 911 and you're gonna get a dispatcher. Now, some cities, 911 only goes to a police dispatcher, and then that police dispatcher decides what services you need, whether to dispatch a police officer or just medical personnel. So that choice may be taken away from you once you dial 911, unless you decide to go and take her to a hospital yourself, a self-committal kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But if you end up having to call for, we'll just say, emergency services to umbrella everybody, both police and medical. If you have to call for that, then they are going to determine who needs to be sent. Out here in California, that's how it was anyway. You didn't have the choice of just calling, of dialing 911 and just choosing which one you want to send. The dispatcher would make that decision. And a 5150 case, 5150s, when I was an officer, were usually a standard police response, because it was the police who could place you under 5150, unless the 5150 wasn't clear at the time and it was a straight medical issue. Then the police wouldn't be called. It would be medical personnel sent to the scene, and they would transport the person to the hospital, where a lot of times, if it ends up being 5150, it's at the hospital where they determine that. And then the police would be called and placed around 5150 and all that. Out here in California, that's typically how it is. Tone says, why didn't they sit her up and secure her with the seatbelt? Good question. I mean, generally, you want your suspects, I say suspects loosely, as don't mean to sound offensive when I use that word, but typically we want our suspects seated properly in the back of the seat with a seatbelt on, hands handcuffed behind their back, in the back of the patrol car. But you got to look at it this way too, Tony. If you got a suspect that's fighting and don't want to physically go with the program, she didn't want to be in that car anyway. You got to get her in the back of that car, unless they have some other protocol that they can follow and get her an ambulance. But think of it this way: even in an ambulance, you must sit on that gurney and be strapped to that gurney before they can transport you anywhere. Now, in a patrol cars are not designed to have somebody laid out in the back seat. That's not how they're designed. They're designed to have a suspect sit up in a seated position. But if there are circumstances where you might have to put a suspect in there proned out, laid out, which if you do that, you better be checking on that suspect regularly during that transport to make sure, number one, they can breathe. Make sure, number two, there's nothing medically happening to them where you need to stop immediately and call for emergency medical services. So there's some monitoring going on. And correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, on your end, if it's different on your end. But there's some monitoring going on when you transport someone in the back of your patrol car in a laid out, proned out position. You see what I'm saying? We were never told under any circumstances can you never transport someone in that position. Never told that, because obviously there's going to be some situations where people ain't going to cooperate. They're not going to want to sit down in the seat like you're supposed to for whatever reason. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What you say to that, Corey?
Yeah, like I said, we transported in the front seat, so it was automatic for us to put that seatbelt on you. If you're going to be somewhat combative, we did have some leg restraints in there that we could restrain your legs and still transport you. Now, I had a Ford Taurus, so depending on the size of the individual, it's very uncomfortable for them to sit in that front seat with those handcuffs behind your back. And even still, just because they're behind your back doesn't mean nothing, Mike. I had individuals, I put them in there with the handcuffs behind them. I go gather evidence of whatever I'm doing. I come back, they got the handcuffs in front of them. I mean, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, seen that before.
So, depending on that person's physical appearance, I would, hey man, I'm gonna put these handcuffs in front of you because you're gonna, be very uncomfortable. And they're sitting all in the chair, all awkward.
I understand.
It's a short ride, but I let them know my standard. I'm gonna put these handcuffs in front of you. You do anything I don't like to do, I got some friends on the side of me that'll love to meet you. All right, we going on a short ride. We don't want no trouble. Oh no, troop, it's all good. Okay, just make clear. I'm gonna put these in front of you to make you a little more comfortable. And you set them straight. They ain't gonna do nothing. But Megan said, personally, I would call ENT and let them decide if police need to be called. I wouldn't want my family to be in danger from mental illness. Yeah, I mean, I'm not so quite sure that, because the level of training that the officer get, I think in today's time, the amount of mental health, I don't know if I'm saying it right, mental health training that's, or not so much mental health training, but the amount of mental health people that are out here. I mean, it's bad in some areas. And, a lot of times I don't think, you got to have that right mindset. They're not psychiatrists or shrinks to be able to diagnose them on there. I mean, we get a little bit trained and look for, see if they're, have paranoia, schizophrenia, or, maybe a little bit of bipolar or something, but we're not there to diagnose them and say, yeah, this is definitely what you have. But be able to get them to where they need to go. I'm with you, Megan. I would probably try to use other resources first. If they're not combative, I doubt highly seriously, Mike, I'm calling the police.
Depends on what you mean by combative too. Maybe they're not physically combative at that moment, but they're threatening. They're threatening to be violent.
Well, if they're threatening that, okay, well, there you go. If they're threatening violence, they're threatening to hurt or kill themselves or hurt somebody else or kill somebody else, then yeah, you're gonna have to call the police, because you can't, again, rescue is not going to come into a situation like that if they are willing to hurt somebody and escalate it.
Out here in California, I happen to have been part of a department where our officers did get a considerable amount of mental health training, whether that was classroom training or just experience with dealing with people with mental health issues on the street. You know, I've probably, in the course of my police officer career, I probably did well over 150 evaluations in my career, where what that means is I talk to someone, I determine if they are either a danger to themselves, a danger to someone else, or gravely disabled. And I've had to determine if they meet any of those criteria. And if I determine that, it is me who would do what they call a 5150 hold, call the medical personnel to the scene, and they would be transported either to the hospital if there's some physical issues going on first, and then to a mental health facility after that. But out here in California, it was the officer that did that. Yeah, doctors can do it, but out on the street, it was the officer's job to do that. So, you know, when you say, I hear you, Meg, when you say I wouldn't call the police. A lot of times in some areas, it is the police that deal with 5150 issues. When I say 5150, folks, that's what they call the Welfare Institutions Code 5150 out here in California. When someone meets those criteria, they have some mental health issues where they are a danger to themselves, a danger to others, or what they call gravely disabled. That's what I mean when I say 5150, for those who may not know that. But
well, you know, that's why they kind of got away. That's why they kind of got away from 10 codes. They just say mental health, or what is it? I
it's
think
a
it's
habit.
Like ESO or something like that, when you can take them in for a mental evaluation. Yeah, we do we do the same thing. Every officer has that capability, but we're seeing too many instances where people are getting hurt or killed in the hands of law enforcement, and 9 times 10 it ends up that they're being having mental health issues, and that's a problem. You know, we did a show a couple weeks back, Mike, of 3 different mental health instances, and
Yes.
all of them end up shot. And thank the Lord, none of them got killed. But you know, it's sad. You know, what we're dealing with now as a society in mental health issues. Do you call the police or do you call EMT? What is that family member supposed to do? Is the question.
Yeah, Megan makes a good question. If it's your family, can you let them know when you call for the police that they have mental health issues? Absolutely.
Sure.
As an officer, that's one of the first things I want to know. If you're calling on a family member, or anyone for that matter, if you have personal knowledge that they have mental health issues, I want to know that, because that could make a difference as to how I'm able to communicate with that person. You see what I'm saying? Typically, people with mental health issues that are in some kind of crisis don't respond well to you coming at them hot. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
They don't respond well with to that. You see what I'm saying? Right. So you gotta understand and know how to do that. Now, that being said, though, Meg, even if you have mental health issues, there are certain things that officers still have to do to make sure you're safe and to carry out what they need to carry out. You see what I'm saying? We consider your mental health issue, right? And if there's some help we can get you for the mental health issue peacefully, then we want to do that. Have there been times when I've placed someone on a mental health hold against their will? Well, yeah, all the time. That's what a 5150 is for. You see what I'm saying? Have there been times when I determine someone is a danger to themselves or to others, and they end up having to fight me when I'm placing them under a 5150 hold? Yeah. See, now that's where you get into the other area, Meg. If you have someone with mental health issues and they decide to start fighting with the police or demonstrating some behavior that is not only dangerous to themselves, but dangerous to the police, then we have to obviously got to take physical action on you to make sure that that is taken care of. And so your mental health issue is kind of like put on the back burner until we deal with this threat that's in front of us at that moment. You know what I'm saying? What you say to that, Corey?
No, you're 100% correct. My thing is, you know, how much of that door was actually shut. I mean, because why I say that was, okay, all right, how fast was he going? It didn't look like he was going that fast. He wasn't driving erratically. He wasn't, all over the road. I mean, it was a dark road. It seemed as though, I mean, I don't even know if he was doing a speed limit because you didn't hear any noise. I couldn't hear any noise. So my thing is, when she jumped out, I guess, um, did she purposely go down face first because I think what I read, she ended up with two head fractures. And then he drove another, I don't know, looked like 70, 75, about 40, 50 yards at least, not maybe 40 yards, at least is what it looked like, before he realized she wasn't there.
I tend to think, because she was suicidal, I tend to think that she was able to kick that door open because the door was not properly secured. I think
he would have had to heard that.
I think it wasn't closed enough to where, he driving, probably had his radio on. I mean, the police radio. I couldn't tell if there was traffic on the police radio or not, but I think she was able to get that door open, and I think she purposely jumped out that car because her hands were handcuffed in front.
In the front.
If that door is open, you got enough in freedom in your hands to stop yourself from falling out of the vehicle, unless you are so intoxicated, right, that you don't care or your perception is way off, your thinking is way off to where you just roll out the car. Now, think, if you sober, Corey, and you sitting in the back seat of a car and that door opens, you're going to be able to grab onto the cage, to a seat belt, to something to stop yourself from falling out that car. You ain't going to just roll out the car and hit your head. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. We already said this 100 times. The officers are at fault because it is their responsibility to make sure that back door is secured properly, okay, when that person is in custody. So it is the officer's fault. Do I think the officers...
hands down.
Yeah. Do I think the officers did something malicious, or they did something that was racially biased, or they did something that was so ate up that they had some ill will or ill intentions of what they were doing? No, I don't believe that. Of course not. You see what I'm saying? Not in this situation, right? It just happened. No. It's unfortunate. No. It was neglect, but it did happen.
It was definitely neglect. Now, here's the thing. I mean, should they be going to prison? Should it be both? Should both of them be held accountable, or is it the one that's transporting that's held accountable?
I don't think there should be any criminal charges on them. I think
Mike, again, it goes back to our earlier question of as law enforcement officers, when we have someone in custody, whose responsibility are they?
True.
There are responsibilities.
But for criminal, you gotta at least be able to show some criminal intent, right?
Well, it definitely wasn't criminal, but so therefore you would. But it was definitely negligence.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree with that.
Negligence.
I'll agree with that.
So here's the thing. I don't think they're going away for 20 years, or I don't even think they're going to go away maybe a year, if that, and then half of that probably gets suspended.
So you think they'll be criminally charged? You think?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, in today's time, and
I see what you're saying. In today's time, I mean, here's the thing, though, Corey. officers can make mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
It was a
they're
mistake.
humans.
I mean, I can easily see. Oh, I thought the door was closed, but it wasn't quite. How many times you close a door, you think it's closed enough, but it's like ajar or not quite, like you said. The latch didn't click. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I just don't see any criminal intent by what these officers did. Now, should they be held civilly liable? Should the city be held civilly liable for what their officers neglected to do? Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. There's no question about that.
They're gonna get paid for sure.
Yeah. They should.
I don't think. Now, should they lose their jobs?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that they should lose their jobs because I don't think they did anything that says, "Oh, you don't need to be a cop." There's so much to being a police officer that mistake of not ensuring that door was properly closed is a very small piece of what the responsibilities of a police officer. So I think that's an unfair judgment of character to say they shouldn't be police officers because they allowed this to happen. Well, they didn't allow this to happen. They just neglected to close that door like it should have been closed properly. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't follow up. He didn't follow up because the one officer asked him, "Hey, man, you closed the other door," and he said, "Yeah, it's closed." Now, I mean, in the height of that, I wouldn't really call this a real struggle, but when you're going hands on with someone, I mean, your adrenaline gets going, and you have a tendency to forget a little minor detail like that ultimately becomes a huge detail. It happens, but the ultimate one responsible is going to be the one that's doing the transport. And if you told me, Mike, if I say, "Hey, Mike, you close that door," I'm gonna take your word for it. Yeah, you told me it was closed. All right, it's closed. Let's roll. And it just wasn't closed all the way. It happens. How many times have we closed our doors and we thought we closed it all the way and it wasn't?
Yeah, a lot. And I hear you, Stacey. I could swallow that. Get suspended without pay for a couple of days or something, and go through a refresher of transporting suspects. I could get with that. You know what I'm saying? But should they be fired? I don't think so. Now, obviously, we don't make that decision, but I don't think so. I don't think they should be fired. I don't think they should be looked at as, "Oh, because you guys did this, you have no business being cops." This ain't one of those types of situations where I look at that and say that. Look, like you said, Corey, have I thought I closed my patrol car door at times when it actually wasn't quite closed all the way? Yeah, I've done that before myself, probably several times in my 26-year career of being a police officer. You see what I'm saying? And
and that's the
of course, I got a suspect. I ain't trying to have no suspect fall out of my car. You think an officer wants a suspect to fall out of his car? You are crazy. Okay? Ain't no way. When you're in the back of my patrol car, I do not want you to get hurt. I don't want you to have no medical episodes. I don't want you to stop breathing. I don't want none of that stuff. Hey, you do that stuff in the hospital when the doctors will take care of you. And I don't want you to do that with me.
That's the good thing. That's one of the benefits of having the subject right in the front seat with us, is because I can keep eyes on them.
I can see that logic.
You know what I mean? It can be dangerous because you've had suspects over the years have tried to make that leap and try to fight with you in the front seat. But I felt so comfortable having them in the front seat with me where I can watch them. It's hard to do it when they're sitting behind you. In training, you see too many videos of guys sitting in the back seat and they have a dagger or something on them somewhere, and they stab the officer in the back, of the neck and stuff like no, damn, man, that ain't. I ain't gonna have that. I want you sitting next to me. So I can see you. Let's see what Tom got to say here. It looked like she was putting head first from the driver's side. I think she should have been cuffed from the back as the door being ajar. I'm sure these cars have indicator lights on the dash. Yeah, they do. Again, now she was cuffed in the front. Yeah. I don't know what their policy is. I don't know what their instruction says for them to their SOP, standard operating procedures, is for transporting subjects. Maybe it's so they can get away with just putting them in the back seat like that. Maybe I've seen some patrol cars that didn't have seatbelts in the back seat because of the way the seats were made. I don't know if y'all are like that, because I think some are like a plastic hard type material.
Yeah. Our back seats in our patrol cars were hard plastic materials, but we did have seat belts.
But you still had seat belts?
Yeah, but not the traditional seat belts. It was a seat belt that was designed so that we can easily click someone secure in it without really getting too close to them. That's all it was. But we did have seat belts. And the other feature we had was when the back doors were closed, they automatically locked from the inside. So a suspect couldn't open that door and jump out, because they would have had to reach outside the window and grab the door handle on the outside. So
and some of your rear windows had cages on them.
Yeah,
too,
had cages on them, or we kept the window up. You know what I'm saying? So you couldn't reach outside. But typically, if you were in the back seat, you couldn't just open a door because it was locked from the inside. Only the back seats were like that, obviously, but it was locked from the inside once we closed that door. Now, maybe I don't know what everybody's patrol cars are different in different cities, right? They look differently. They got different equipment. They got different features. I don't know what these cops had in their cars at that time. Maybe they didn't have no locking feature like that. But obviously, the door had to be properly secured for that feature to
work.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When I put people in a patrol car, I go around, and it was a habit that fortunately this never happened to me, but there was a habit of me closing the door that I put them in and just going around and checking the other door and making sure those doors were secure. I tried to make that a practice, you know what I'm saying, to do that. Now, for these cops, maybe he didn't go, obviously he didn't go and make sure that other door was properly secured.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was open. But look, Tone, the handcuffing in the back in this situation, it might actually look better for these officers because they handcuffed her in the front. Because you can make the argument like I just made. If you got your hands in front of you, you ain't going to allow yourself to just roll out of a police car without grabbing on to something. You see what I'm saying? And if it opens, ain't you going to say something? Hey, this door is open. Right?
Right. Well, I mean, in her mindset, she's not going to, say something. But being in the front, you make a good point, Mike, is that even if she did, jump out, and I'm sorry, this might sound cold-hearted, but I believe she did jump out because she already made the fact that she was going to kill herself that night when she went to lock up anyways. But I'm thinking, okay, well, you your hands are in front, so that is a really good thing. So you should, when you fall, you should be able to brace yourself. I like to know how fast he was going, right? I mean,
it looked like he was going that fast, at least on the video.
No, it didn't. It's like, he's driving, he's taking his gloves off, and I mean, it seemed like it wasn't long after he gave his starting mileage that it was, oh shoot, this was happening, right? So he was taking the gloves off. Next thing you know, he was stopping the car and she fell out. So,
and Tony, she did say there's other ways. She definitely made statements that certainly supports she intended to fall out of that car. She didn't fall out of the car. She probably threw herself out of that car. I believe that. I do believe she did that. After those two statements, I believe she did intentionally throw herself out of the car. However, those doors still should have been properly
Still-
secured. You know
Still
what I'm
should
saying?
have
You
been
can't get
properly
around that.
secured. Yep.
So
Even still, I mean, the ultimate responsibility still falls back onto that police officer. Now, I my biggest problem with the whole thing is how they went about with the whole first aid. Um, when somebody does, I had a standard practice myself, and we often tell our young troopers that when somebody's in an accident like that, they're already laying down on the ground, leave them there.
leave them
Just
there.
make
Don't
sure
move.
don't move them, because you don't know if they have neck injury. Because I'm worried about getting sued if I move somebody and they were moving all arms, legs, and limbs, and then all of a sudden you move them, you get that vertebrae turned the wrong way, and now they're paralyzed. Unless
Yeah.
it was a life or death situation,
Right. There
I
you
had
go.
to get
Unless
them
it was
out
a
of
risky situation, like they in the middle of the road and you got
right,
traffic. Okay, you obviously got to get them out of the road so both of y'all don't get hit.
right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
It's
Or
not,
something like that. Some
certain
situation
stats
like
like that. Exactly. So I mean, him picking her up like that. Now that guy, he need to go back to basic first aid training again. Like, look, dude, don't pick nobody up like that and set him up and just assuming that they're breathing. You didn't even check if she was breathing. You just looking to see if she's breathing. That's not how you were taught.
And the big thing, like you said, for me, is how he said, you can sit up. Nah,
Yeah.
she just fell out the car. Call ambulance, get him there.
Well,
Leave
the
her
guy
there.
did that. He did that. That was the first thing he did. Now, and also too, I saw a lot of comments on one of the videos, and we're gonna get ahead and wrap this up here in a minute. A lot of times we we carry basic first aid kits with us. I mean, we have tourniquets and we may have some gauze or something like that. But typically officers don't have a huge medical bag where they can start doing, real life-saving um, procedures on someone until rescue gets there. We have the bare minimum right there with us. We can stop some bleeding. We can put a tourniquet on. Maybe if they have a sucking chest wound or something like that, we may have something for that, for gunshot wounds. But that's about the furthest they're going to do. The best thing they should have did was just leave her right there on the ground, check for her pulse, check for her airways to see if she had either or. Make sure her airway wasn't obstructed, and left her right there, and keep trying to talk to her, and see if you can get a response out of her, or if you need to do CPR, then start the CPR. But putting her up like that, I didn't see the reasoning in that, so I that was bad. That was bad.
I agree.
So, but we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. We come to the end of the show. We want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. A very good conversation. Please like and share and subscribe to our channel if you're new checking this out. Share it out to everybody. Let's get this conversation going and getting this out there, going viral, so we get seen by more people. We love you and we thank you all for watching us tonight. Don't keep in mind we come out every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Or 8:05 actually, with another video. And if you got something specific you like for us to share and give our honest opinion on, hit us up. Mike and I both are on Facebook. Michael Bradley and Corey Taylor. Look us up, and we'll get it on the show. Mike, last words.
You guys, thanks for joining us. We had a lot of good comments there, a lot of good questions and stuff. We love to see y'all make comments and give your views so we can even address, and sometimes you might even make us look at something or look at a different perspective. You know what I mean?
Right.
So thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll have another one for you next week.
Thank you. And if you ever like to be on the show with me and Mike, hit us up. What a good time for you. Like I said, we do it every Thursday, but just make sure that Thursday date works for you, and we'll get you on, and you can be on there with us and join the conversation live on the show. So we'll see y'all next week. Have a blessed and safe weekend, and stay calm.
Peace out.